This is NBC News special coverage of the Republican National Convention. Live from Milwaukee, here is Tom Llamas.
We are live tonight from Milwaukee as night 3 of the Republican National Convention gets underway, and we are following several major breaking stories at this hour. First, President Biden testing positive for COVID. The president seen without a mask boarding Air Force One, saying he feels great. We're told he will be self-isolating in Delaware this weekend. Back here at the RNC, the spotlight, of course, is on former President Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator JD Vance. Vance slated to give the most important speech of his political career so far. The 39-year-old who has never attended the RNC before this week, now set to introduce himself to the American people on the national stage. Tonight's theme, Make America Strong once again, focusing on foreign policy as the country confronts 2 major wars. In just a moment, we speak with the parents of a U.S.-Israeli hostage fighting for their son's safe return. This evening's remarks centering around the U.S.'s position on the world stage as we enter prime time, some of the most anticipated speakers making their way to the podium. We'll hear from some big names, including Texas Governor Greg Abbott, former Trump advisor Peter Navarro, who was just released from prison this morning, North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, who was once on Trump's VP shortlist, and the president's son, Donald Trump Jr. And this afternoon, former President Trump with a bandage on his ear. Look at this, touring the convention stage as he prepared for his big speech. The former president's address expected to dramatically shift in tone after the assassination attempt on his life. And the shocking news today, one of the most prominent Democrats, Representative Adam Schiff, calling on President Biden to drop out of this race. We have a lot to get to this evening. Our reporters are spread out across the convention floor. I first want to get to NBC White House correspondent Mike Memoli, who was in Las Vegas with the president. Mike, this was an incredible sort of series of events for the president today and a lot of news. What are we hearing from the White House? What do you know?
Tom, I mean, the pace of developments during this campaign, during this week, during this day has just been incredible. It was just exactly an hour ago, right on this stage behind me, as we were waiting, wondering why I was running so late for this scheduled address to the Unidos conference here, that the head of the organization came out to announce to the crowd that she had spoken directly with President Biden, who had called her directly to express his regret that he would no longer be able to attend this speech. Now, that announcement alone would have been significant, would have been a source of any number of speculative decisions about what may be leading to that. But then she dropped the next line, which was that he had been diagnosed with COVID-19. Now, according to the president's doctor, the president began this day feeling like a little bit run down, that he had some upper respiratory symptoms, a runny nose, a non-productive cough in the language of the doctor. He was feeling good enough to go ahead with his first event of the day. He made a visit, you're seeing the pictures on the screen now, to a local restaurant here. He then sat down and recorded an interview with a radio host. But it was the fact that his symptoms were continuing, that the doctors who travel with the president, there is a full-time White House medical unit that travels with the president, decided to give him that point-of-care test, as they put it, the COVID test, and he did test positive. So at this point, the president is now on Air Force One, heading back to Delaware, where we are told that he will self-isolate for the appropriate amount of time. The COVID guidelines have changed, as you know, from the CDC. We also just in the last few moments have received an email that was sent around to the Biden campaign staff, from the campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, as well as the campaign chairwoman, Jen O'Malley Dillon, sharing this news with the campaign staff and saying that the president will get back out on the campaign trail as soon as he is COVID-free. So that is the campaign part of it as it relates to the president's health. But as far as the status of his candidacy, very much still in the air in the minds of so many Democrats, with Adam Schiff, as you mentioned, coming out, one of the most prominent names in the Democratic Party, to call on the president to step aside. The Biden campaign had been downplaying this, pointing to the number of lawmakers who've been traveling with the president on this 2-day swing to Las Vegas, the calls, the support he still enjoys from what they put it as the backbone of the Democratic Party, especially Black and Latino voters, the audience he was speaking to out here. But now the president will have plenty of time in isolation to continue those conversations with his team, with other Democrats, about whether he should and will remain in the race, as he has insisted he plans to do.
Mike Memoli, we appreciate you. We appreciate that reporting. We're going to stay with you and get any updates that they come in from the White House. I do want to turn to the campaign stage now. Representative Nancy Mace is speaking right now. Let's listen in.
I'm the Congresswoman representing the great state of South the age of 17, I learned that dropping out of high school might not have been the best idea. So I took my first job at a fine dining establishment some of you may know as the Waffle House. Denny's was a little too highbrow. While Waffle House was an important part of my journey, it would not be my destination. I soon went from making waffles to making history. 25 years ago, this high school dropout became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. A college campus where we don't burn American flags, we salute them. I'm a single mom and a rape survivor. To women tonight who can relate, please know you have a friend and a sister in me. And I will fight like hell for you. I'm the daughter of an Army Brigadier General and a school teacher. I've admired my dad's Distinguished Service Cross from Vietnam. I've endured the rigors of a Citadel education. And today I represent a district that includes Parris Island, where we make Marines. What we're witnessing today is proof that strength preserves peace and weakness invites war. We can never project strength around the world when weakness stands in the White House. Nations like China see weakness as opportunity. China's fentanyl invades our borders. Their arms supply Putin's regime. China supports enemy states like Iran. They oppress their own people, especially their women. The world is watching America, and we must show them what we're made of. And I know a strong leader when I see one. Donald Trump stood up to China before, and he will do it again. Anyone who thinks they can take on Donald Trump or take down America is now on notice. Just as Trump quickly rose to his feet with a defiant fist in the air in Butler Township, Pennsylvania, when we re-elect him as president in November, America will soon be back on hers. We will be courageous, we will be resilient, we will be united, and we will be prepared to take on the challenges of this historic moment. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America, and God bless Donald J. Trump. Thank you.
We've just been listening to Representative Nancy Mace from South Carolina. The next speaker, quite interesting. Representative Ronny Jackson of Texas. Interesting because he also served as White House physician under both Presidents Obama and Trump, and he treated former President Trump when he had COVID. He has also spoken and treated the president since that assassination attempt, treating and looking at his ear as well. We're going to have much more of that after he speaks with Garrett Haake, but let's listen into Congressman Jackson.
All right, all right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and good evening to my delegation from Texas. My name is Dr. Ronny Jackson, and I'm the congressman from the 13th Congressional District of the great state of Texas. Prior to being in Congress, I served on active duty in the Navy for 25 years. I was a Navy deep sea diver, an emergency medicine doctor, and a combat physician in Iraq. During that time, I also had the distinct privilege of serving for 14 years as White House physician. But most importantly, I served as the appointed physician to the greatest president that this country has ever had, Donald J. Trump. And not only that, but now I can say I served a president who literally took a bullet for our country. President Trump and I have been through a lot together over the years, but I have never, ever been prouder of his leadership than I was last Saturday. His warrior spirit and his display of will to keep fighting for our country, even after getting shot down, will go down as an all-time moment in American history. I know firsthand from my time at the White House that being a president is an unrelenting 24/7 job. Time off truly just doesn't exist. Our president needs to make clear and decisive decisions in a moment's notice. When the phone rings in the middle of the night, the president must be ready. Unfortunately, our current president is not ready for that call. Let's not kid ourselves. Father Time has not been kind to Joe Biden. And China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea, they do not respect Biden's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. schedule. And we would not be in this situation were it not for Joe Biden's staff and his family. They should have compassion for him and prioritize his health and our country's security. But they have put their own interest above America's interest. Perhaps the greatest blame lies with his own Vice President, Kamala Harris. She has not been truthful with us. She has lied to us. She has put party above country, and she is as unfit in character as Joe Biden is in body and mind. Between the wide open southern border, the botched Afghanistan withdrawal, record high inflation, and the devastating crime in our streets, this administration has now produced a legacy of failure, disappointment, and danger. There is simply too much at stake to have someone who can barely shuffle to a podium be the one that is responsible for the safety and the security of our country. Every second that Joe Biden remains in the White House, this country becomes less safe. However, under President Trump's leadership, we will restore our standing on the world stage. We will bring back our great economy we had. We will finally secure our southern border. We will rebuild our great military. We will clean up crime in our streets. And most importantly, we will have a president who is respected by our allies and who is feared by our enemies and who leads with strength. Let me close by saying the path forward is simple. It is very simple and straightforward. We need to make America great again, and we need to do everything we possibly can to re-elect Donald J. Trump as our president. Thank you all. God bless you. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
We have just been listening to Texas Representative Ronny Jackson there, someone who served as the White House doctor under President President Obama and President Trump, and really delivering a tough message there on President Biden, saying Father Time has not been kind with President Biden. I want to bring in one of our reporters, Haake, who's joining us now, and who's been speaking to Ronny Jackson. Garrett, what other reporting you have? Because I know you guys have asked him about how the president's doing after that assassination attempt.
Yeah, it's been interesting, Tom, because immediately after the assassination attempt, Ronny Jackson spoke to a group here in town where he said, I've been essentially treating the president. I've talked to him. I've worked on his ear. It's going to be fine, he told this group. It's not going to even need stitches. And essentially implied that Donald Trump is under his care as a doctor. In the several hours between that conversation and when I found him, it was clear that the Trump campaign had asked him to shut up, because all he would confirm to me is that, yes, he had examined the president's ear at some point. Subsequently, we've learned that he has spent a lot of time around the president since Saturday, basically acting as some kind of physician to former President Trump. But, Tom, it's been frustrating to reporters and to people out there who might be interested about exactly what the president's injury and condition is, what's going on under that bandage. Because the Trump campaign has provided absolutely no information. They have said they will tell us nothing that doesn't come from the mouth of Donald Trump himself. And Ronny Jackson is no longer talking about whatever care he may be providing. The man who served, or the man who he took care of when he was White House physician in his previous job.
That's what happened.
And Garrett, I mean, I think it's fair to say also that Representative Ronny Jackson might have had the toughest comments on President Biden and the age issues so far at this convention.
There's only one man.
Yeah, look, if you thought perhaps that some of these speakers might pull their punches because of President Biden's COVID diagnosis today, think again. I mean, you heard that from Ronny Jackson, suggesting almost clinically that Joe Biden isn't able to do the job, although I will say he's the third or fourth person I've heard in some of these undercard speeches make that 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. joke. Speakers are going to have to start putting $1 in a jar or something if they want to keep using that material throughout the course of the week. But this is the argument that, the Trump campaign wants to make more broadly, that Joe Biden isn't just bad at this job, he's unfit for it. And by the way, Tom, I'll just add from my conversation with some of these delegates out here about the president's COVID diagnosis, there's almost a conspiratorial tone to their responses, basically saying, okay, yeah, right, this is just the latest excuse to keep him off the trail. It's the latest thing to maybe get him out of this race. There's almost like an eye-rolling shrug to the diagnosis of COVID from the president of the United States, because they don't expect to see a robust Joe Biden out here campaigning right now.
Yeah, Garrett, do me a favor. Can you pull the curtain back a little bit for our viewers? Explain to us exactly where you are on the convention floor, because you're not exactly on the floor, but you're sort of in that balcony with other correspondents.
I'm trying to work through my photographer here to make it clear exactly where we are, Tom. But if we can pull the long lens back here, I think you can get an idea. I'm basically just off stage right. For people watching at home, I would be, on stage right here. I basically have a view of the back of every speaker's head, the reaction of the crowd out here, and perhaps most interestingly, I can read the teleprompter along with some of these speakers and see when they are reading the remarks that they have prepared and have been improved by the Trump campaign, and when they are making things up as they go, like when Ron DeSantis last night chose not to use a closing line about making America great again, but pivoted as if to avoid using President Trump's signature phrase. So an interesting view. I can get down and chat with folks on the floor, but I'm in this skybox kind of, opera box, if you will, just off the floor here for the duration tonight.
How's the competition there amongst the other correspondents? I see some notables next to you, some handsome young correspondents there. Everyone playing along okay?
I don't recognize competition, Tom. It's just friends having a chat, That's just what we're doing.
Garrett Haake, correspondent for The People. We appreciate that. A big shout out to whoever's on that long lens tonight. We really do appreciate all that. We've been following a lot of breaking headlines here if you're just joining our coverage. The big headline in the last hour, President Biden, the White House announcing he has tested positive for COVID. He woke up feeling a little strange, but he went along with some events, and then later in the day, he did take a COVID test. He tested positive. We have been told that he has been given some treatment for COVID. He has been boosted. He has been vaccinated. And he's going to spend the weekend at his vacation home in Delaware. We did see some video of him. This is earlier in Las Vegas. Speaking of voters, shaking hands. He's had a lot of people. He's met a lot of people since post-debate because of that yes, I understand. because of that, because of what's happened post-debate, he's listened to a lot of people. He's had to shake a lot of hands. This is him leaving, getting ready for Air Force One. Down on the stage is Matt Gaetz, Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida. Let's listen in.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden's been out of it. Democrats have been hiding the real Biden for years. We saw people in the witness protection program more often than we saw unscripted Biden. Under Biden-Harris, America has fallen sicker, lonelier, and poorer. Under Trump, we prospered, we were richer, inflation was low, and there were 2 genders. Under Biden-Harris, inflation has gotten so bad you can no longer bribe Democrat senators with cash alone. You have to use gold bars just so the bribes hold value. Oh, the swamp draining will recommence soon, and I will be President Trump's strongest ally in Congress to pass term limits, to stop taxpayer funding for political campaigns, to ban members of Congress for life from becoming lobbyists, and for the same reason you don't let the referee bet on the game, ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks. I am proud to stand before you, the only Republican in Congress who takes no lobbyist money, no PAC money. It's not good for me. I work for you, not them. President Trump, he'll never defund our police, but he will defund foreign aid to countries that hate us. And President Trump understands that if it isn't racist to check ID for a hunting license or welfare benefits or a fishing license, then it is okay to demand an ID to vote everywhere in this country in every election that's held. A Democrat congressman recently said that any criticism of Joe Biden is ableist. I don't think it's too much to ask that the American president be able to do the job. Kamala Harris isn't able to do any job. She was appointed border czar. Appointing Kamala Harris to oversee the border is like appointing Bernie Madoff to oversee your retirement plan. President Trump has shown the world what he is made of, and now we will show the world what America is made of by having his back. And how about the choice President Trump made for a running mate? JD looks like a young Abraham Lincoln, but he's from Ohio, like General Grant. And like General Grant, JD Vance knows how to fight. So they can run Biden from the nursing home, Harris, George Clooney, Robert De Niro, whoever they want to run. We are on a mission to rescue and save this country, and we ride or die with Donald John Trump to the end. Thank you all so much. Thank you for having my back. Let's go get him.
Representative Matt Gaetz, we've just been listening to from the state of Florida. They're receiving a standing ovation. I want to get right over to Vaughn Hillyard to talk us a little more about Representative Gaetz and what he was talking about there. Vaughn, what was the reaction like where you were?
Matt Gaetz is one of the superstars, if you will, of the MAGA movement here, and the reception when he took the stage was notable here. He is one of those figures for a Florida congressman who has been an unabashed ally of Donald Trump every step of the way, especially there in the aftermath of the January 6th attack, when many in the Republican Party, they stepped away from Donald Trump. They thought that he could be politically fraught for them, and when there were not many folks making trips to Mar-a-Lago or willing to appear and, speak the MAGA MAGA agenda. It was him in 2021 and 2022 who was there alongside Donald Trump. And folks, the party activists, they remember that. Donald Trump remembers that. And I know you had a conversation with former Speaker Kevin McCarthy yesterday, Tom, because it was Matt Gaetz who was on the front lines of getting him booted from the speakership in the U.S. House last October. And there has been an effort to try by Kevin McCarthy to go and get these Matt Gaetz allies out of Congress. He's largely been unsuccessful on that front. Right now, Matt Gaetz, the House Ethics Committee, said just last month that they were still investigating him for questionable behavior that he, Matt Gaetz, has all completely denied, and there have been no charges that have been filed against him. But he is a figure that Donald Trump has consistently raised up. And I actually had a conversation with him yesterday, Tom, because he was talking about next year, if there is a Republican majority in the Senate and the House, he was excited about having JD Vance, somebody who comes from that wing of the Republican Party, unlike back in 2017 for Donald Trump's first year after the first administration, when it was the likes of Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan leading the congressional delegation for Republicans. Matt Gaetz is confident that Donald Trump will have closer allies in the second go-around, Tom.
Yeah, Vaughn, we want to roll that moment we were talking about. If we can have our director, Brett Holy, roll that for us now.
What night are you speaking? Are you speaking tonight? Hey, you're not. If you took that stage, you would get booed off of it. You would get booed off the stage.
You know, Vaughn, I had a chance to ask Kevin about that, and the former speaker, and he told me that, he didn't really want to answer. He didn't think he'd get booed off the stage. But it is impressive, the reception that Matt Gaetz got here tonight.
And Matt Gaetz there said to Kevin McCarthy there on the convention floor that the reason he's not making a speech is because Kevin McCarthy would get booed. And I can tell you, I've been at a few campaign rallies where Kevin McCarthy's name has come up or a picture of him or Donald Trump has mentioned him, and he has been booed. And I think that that's where, when you talk about the base of the Republican Party, what propelled Donald Trump to a third nomination within this party, it's the same backbone that has turned to the likes of Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They really are the backbone of the base of the Republican Party, and for this arena, it's full of the most dedicated party activists and elected officials, and there is a recognition of who is so closely allied with Donald Trump and who Donald Trump has turned to in these critical moments. And frankly, there's one individual who is in the U.S. House still, and it's Matt Gaetz, and one who's not, and it's former Speaker Kevin McCarthy.
It is a good point. Vaughn Hillyard from the convention floor for us tonight. Vaughn, we appreciate all of your reporting. As we mentioned, the theme of tonight is focusing on foreign policy. It's been 9 months since Hamas attacked southern Israel with that terror attack, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds hostage. Among the hostages that have not been released so far is 22-year-old Omer Nutra, a dual American citizen American-Israeli citizen who grew up on Long Island. Since that tragic day in October, Omer's mother, Orna, and father, Ronan, have been advocating nonstop, meeting with elected officials, working to bring their son and all the hostages home. Tonight, Orna and Ronan Nutra are here in Milwaukee, set to deliver their message. They will speak to the RNC right there at the podium on the stage tonight. Millions watching around the country will tune in for that speech. First of all, thank you. I am so sorry for what you've had to live through over the last 9 months. I was in Israel right after the terror attack. I've spoken to so many families. It is a horrific crime. My first question to you is how do you get up every morning and hope that your son's going to come back?
It's tough, but we have to get up every morning and pray that he is alive and ask ourselves, what are we doing today? To bring him home, to advocate on his behalf, to speak up for him because he has no voice.
What would you want to say to this crowd tonight?
Well, basically, we want to raise awareness to the situation. Not enough Americans know that 45 Americans were murdered on October 7. 1,400 total were murdered that day and ever since. And 12 Americans were taken hostage, and 4 of them came back. 8 are still being held for such a long time, almost 300 days, in terrible conditions, without seeing the Red Cross, without getting proper food, medical attention. People need to know about it, and our job as parents is to make sure that people are aware of it and fight to his release.
Orna, what gives you hope or faith that former President Trump will be committed to getting your son back?
This is not a partisan issue, and we need everyone on our side. We know that former President Trump cares about the hostage issue, as you know, the current president, and we really need everyone to get into this and make sure that the deal is completed and they're brought home, because it's been over 9 months now.
Are you satisfied with what the Biden administration has done so far, or do you think they could be doing more?
Everyone should be doing more. Everyone should be doing more. They're not home yet. The Biden administration has been attentive to us. We've been meeting with them regularly, but they're not home. And it's almost 10 months, you know, and they need to be brought home. So we need everyone on board.
Talk to me about the decision to come here, right? Because some people may look at this and confused, thinking you're into Republican politics, but this is all about your son. How did you make that decision to come here? Because it is a bold step.
We were invited, and we are speaking everywhere we're invited to make sure that this issue stays on top of people's minds. And we are very non-partisan. We're trying to call for everybody to work together, like Orna said. And our job is to make sure that it's still in the headline. We're competing with the news, but it's about human beings, about our son and 119 other people, among their 8 Americans. And American people should care. The attack on Israel was not just an attack on Israel. It was also an attack on America and attack on our values. And we need to make sure that people are aware to that. Politicians are doing everything they can to close the deal that is on the table, that Netanyahu agreed to, Hamas is close to agreeing to, put the pressure on all the partners involved, and bring those hostages one by one back.
Before we go, talk to me about the stickers you guys are wearing today and you'll wear up on the stage.
Yeah, so this is the American 8 hostages that are still being held by Hamas. 5 of them are considered to be alive, amongst them our son Omer, and 3 additional Americans that were murdered by Hamas on October 7th and were taken, their bodies taken as bargaining chips. And they're still there too, and they need to be brought home. The ones who are alive need to be brought home, and the deceased should be receiving a respectful burial.
And the 285?
The 285 is 285 days today since the war broke. So we count it every single day. For us, it's one long day. Since we last spoke to our son, 286 days. Can you imagine that?
I cannot imagine that.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that. We thank you for coming here and sharing your story. We look forward to your speech. We will be thinking about you and praying for your family that your son comes home safely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Our special coverage of Night 3 of the RNC continues. We're live tonight from Milwaukee as intense anticipation is building. Former President Trump's vice presidential pick, Senator JD Vance, set to introduce himself to the American people. We're going to have much more right after this. Okay, we are live at the Republican National Convention, a major moment here for Republicans and really the former Trump administration. This is Peter Navarro. He's the former director of the U.S. Office of Trade and Manufacturing Policy. This is important because he's just been released from prison. Let's listen to what he has to say.
This is a beautiful thing. And I think I think you folks just want to know if you can see my MAGA tattoo I got there. Yes, indeed. This morning I did walk out of a federal prison in Miami. Joe Biden and his Department of Injustice put me there. Tonight I'm here with you in this beautiful city of Milwaukee. I've got a very simple message for you. If they can come for me, and if they can come for Donald Trump, be careful, they will come for you. If we don't control our government, their government will control us. If we don't control all three branches of our government, legislative, executive, and judicial, their government will put some of us, like me and Steve Bannon, in prison and control the rest of us. Here's how it went. Here's how I got in prison. The legislative branch came for me first. Your favorite Democrat, Nancy Pelosi, created your favorite committee, the sham January 6th committee, which demanded that I violate executive privilege. What did I do? I refused. The J6 committee demanded that I betray Donald John Trump to save my own skin. I refused. Here's the thing about the Constitution. They demanded that I break the law because they have no respect for it. I refused. And a Democrat majority in the House then voted to hold me in contempt. All right, what happened next? The next jackboot to drop was the executive branch. Another one of your favorite Democrats, Democrat Attorney General Merrick Garland. There's a winner. Him and Jack Smith indicted and prosecuted me for criminal contempt of Congress. Now, here's what's weird about it. It's something that Democrat prosecutors refused to do against one of their own, including two guys with blood on their hands, Eric Holder and Alejandro Mayorkas, the great border czar, right? They've actually gotten people killed. For decades, the Department of Injustice right now, the Department of Justice policy stated, hear me out on this, if Congress slaps a subpoena on a senior White House advisor like me, the advisor's duty is to politely tell them to go pound sand. That's exactly what I did. So far we got two branches, legislative and executive. The judicial branch delivered the final blow. Just as, here's another favorite of yours, just as Democrat Judge Juan Marchand, you know this guy? Did to Donald John Trump in his Manhattan kangaroo court, another Democrat judge, a guy named Ahmed Maida, keep your eye on this guy, Ahmed Maida, Obama appointee, they stripped me of every possible defense, and then what? Just like in Manhattan with Donald Trump, they threw me to the wolves of an anti-Trump jury, and where? The D.C. swamp. They convicted me, they jailed me. Guess what? They did not break me. And they will never break Donald Trump. They will never break Donald Trump. All right, now here's the most important thing I'm going to tell you. You may be thinking this couldn't happen to you. Make no mistake, they're already coming for you. Joe and Kamala, they threw out the woke blue carpet across the Rio Grande, opened our borders to what? Murderers and rapists. When Donald Trump said it, thank you for saying that, when Donald Trump said murderers, rapists in 2016, they go, oh, racist, whatever. We read the papers. It's murderers and rapists. Murderers and rapists, drug cartels, human traffickers, terrorists, Chinese spies, and a whole army of illiterate illegal aliens stealing the jobs of black, brown, and blue-collar Americans. They put them right on your front doorstep. Right. Now, here's another thing Joe Biden did. You got to love this. The green new scam. We're in the heart here in Milwaukee, around all this. This is where the auto industry, that new scam is destroying our industry, leaving us at the mercy of the battery factories in Shanghai and slave labor in the Congo. Biden inflation. You're going to hear a lot of this because it's so friggin' true. Biden inflation is coming after what's left of your savings and eating your wages. And the Democrats, here's the thing. I'm sitting in prison thinking about this. It just eats at me as the Democrats come for your kids. They're indoctrinating them with poisonous attitudes on race and gender. And here's the thing, when politics fails, the investigations and prosecutions begin. They did it to me. They're going to do it to Trump. But hear me out. They've also done it to Catholics, pro-life activists, and parents who are just standing up for the kids at school board meetings. This is a tale of two Americas, and you know it wasn't this way when Donald Trump was president. I remember the days I was there. In Trump's America, you were safe and our borders were secure. In Trump's America, you were more prosperous, and you didn't have to choose between what? Food on the table, medicine in the cabinet, and a roof over your head. And in Trump's America, you didn't have to worry about being locked up for disagreeing with the government. I went to prison so you won't have to. I am your wake-up call. All right, this is where I'm going to have fun now, because I'm going to leave you now with the last three words. The last three words my beautiful fiancé said when I left that morning for prison. They weren't, "I love you." That was a given. She simply said, "We got this. We got this." That's what bring my girl out now. That's what these lawfare jackals don't understand. When they put people like me in prison and fire figurative and now literal bullets at Donald Trump, they also assault our families. On Election Day, America will hold these lawfare jackals accountable. Now, here's the sweetest thing that's going to come off my lips. Vote Trump Vance. 24 for Trump 47. I'm Peter Navarro. I went to prison so you won't have to. This is my beautiful girl. She did the time with me. That's what these friggin' Democrats don't understand. They do this to our families. She's my girl. Yeah. I love you. Let's win. Do not let up. Do not let up. Pedal to the metal till November.
To the metal till November. We've just been listening to former trade czar under former President Trump, Pete Navarro. He just got out of prison. He served 4 months in a low-security facility in Miami for refusing to cooperate with the January 6th investigation in Congress. He had a little bit of everything there in that speech for all the supporters of former President Trump. Just behind me here in Milwaukee. Quick fact check, though. He had a lot of comments on undocumented immigrants. We do want to say the vast majority of undocumented immigrants don't come here to commit crimes. Also, many of them do know how to read. Many of them are educated, maybe not at the same level as Americans are, but there were a lot of generalizations made there. We wanted to correct the record. We are following the breaking news that President Biden has tested positive for COVID. The president was back on the campaign trail in Nevada when it was reported that he had tested positive for COVID. I want to bring in Principal Deputy Campaign Manager for President Biden, Quentin Fulks. Quentin, first, thanks for joining us. One thing is that kind of struck me as strange. The president put up this tweet, and we're going to put it up for our viewers now. You can kind of maybe explain it to us. He just tweeted, "I'm sick." And then he writes of Elon Musk and his rich buddies trying to buy this election. And if you agree, pitch in here. But he really is sick with COVID. So talk to me about the strategy and what he was trying to do here.
Well, look, first of all, thank you for having me, Tom. Look, we got your attention, and now that we do, we should talk about the issues that matter. This race is about Joe Biden and the people watching at home versus Donald Trump and billionaires. President Biden, as he said, he may be experiencing some mild symptoms from COVID as he tested positive, but he is tired of school teachers and nurses paying more in taxes than people like Elon Musk. And the reason that they are contributing to Donald Trump is because they know that he is on the side of the wealthiest in corporations, and him and the party and the remarks that you just cut away from tell you everything that you need to know about Republicans under Donald Trump and where their priorities are and what they actually care about, and that is nothing except for Donald Trump. And so I think that our campaign wanted to make sure that we got folks' attention, and I think that the president laid it out very clearly in his tweets.
Quentin, I want to get the campaign's reaction to the big headline today that Congressman Adam Schiff has said he believes President Biden should step aside.
Joe Biden.
Well, look, we disagree. And I think that the 14 million Democratic primary voters who voted for President Biden would also disagree. President Biden has said that he is staying in this race. Our job now as a campaign and the president's job is continue to travel around the country and talk to voters about what matters and what's at stake. And I think that that's going to be pretty easy to do with Republicans at the RNC tonight, shelling out comments that you have to follow up on and make corrections to because they're baseless claims about immigrants. They're lies to the American people about foreign policy, about their stances on the economy, about their stances on guns, about their stances on literally everything, women's reproductive freedoms, because that's who the Republican Party is. They're lying to the American people. President Biden is our nominee, and we're going to continue to speak to American voters every single day, drawing the contrast between Donald Trump's extreme MAGA agenda and that of President Biden and Vice President Harris's, which is building an America where everybody has a fair shot.
Yes. I got you. We have a new NBC News poll, and the numbers are striking. When asked if voters are satisfied with the party's presidential nominee, only 33% of Democrats say they are. So nearly 70%, 7 in 10 Democrats, don't want Joe Biden to be the nominee. I mean, that is striking, Quinn. How do you overcome that, especially at a time when people are questioning his health, questioning his strength? He just tested positive for COVID. Granted, he might be fine in the next few days, but we just don't know at this point, and it's going to further bring up questions about his health and if he can serve another 4 years.
Well, look, we do know the president did test positive for COVID, but it's because he's been crisscrossing this country, campaigning, speaking to millions of Americans about the issues that are at stake in this election. And what I would say is that the voters are on President Biden and Vice President Harris's side when it comes to the issues. And that's what our campaign has been focused on, talking to American voters where they are in their communities about the issues that matter to them, about housing, rent affordability, about health care, child care, about reproductive freedom, about a fair tax code. That is where our focus is, and we know that voters across this country agree with that agenda. 80 million of them in 2020.
Quentin,
and we are on course to talk to those voters.
Yeah. Quentin, real quick before we let you go, I do want to ask you your reaction to Senator JD Vance and the Trump campaign deciding not to do the debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, at least not on August 13th.
Well, look, we find it interesting that, former President Trump picked JD Vance because he was such a good debater. But now, after a week of sort of damning information coming out about JD Vance's stance on abortion, that they want to duck. Look, our campaign has agreed to debate with CBS on August 13th. And we hope that JD Vance shows up because the vice president looks forward to having a substantive conversation about the issues facing American voters.
Okay, Quinn, we thank you so much for joining our coverage. We thank you for answering all of our questions. For more on the state of this race and what we can expect for the rest of the night, 3 here at the RNC, I want to bring in our political pros tonight. Hogan Gidley, former White House principal deputy press secretary during the Trump administration, and Ashley Davis. She's a Republican strategist and a former Bush White House official. We thank you both for being here. Haake, I'm going to start with you. What do you want to hear from Senator JD Vance tonight?
Well, look, I think many things he can discuss and talk about. The crowd's going to love it, sure. But what I really want him to do is kind of outline a lot about his background. I think he needs to introduce himself to the American people. And while a lot of people, in this arena may know him, the millions of people watching don't. They may know him from the book. They may know him from the movie Hillbilly Elegy, but they don't know about his real background, his real past. He needs to talk about that, humanize himself. But I would hope that he would also explain some of the comments he's made in the past by pointing out, hey, I understand some people don't like Donald Trump. That's where I was. But I got to know the man. I got to witness the policies and feel the effect they had on the American people, and they made their lives better. Take them kind of on a trail, if you will, of where he was when he was younger, how he got to where he was, of course, running through the military, through college, but then talk about his political career. Talk about his evolution on some issues and why he came to support Donald Trump in the way that he does.
You worked in the Bush administration. This has to be, I would think, a little bit strange for you, right? Because the party has changed so much. I was here in 2016 in Cleveland for that convention. The Bushes weren't there. We are here now. The Bushes aren't here. They're not even talked about. Does that bother you as somebody who's worked in Republican politics?
A little bit, but I actually think, and I was thinking about this because I was originally a Nikki supporter, and I've known Nikki for a number of years, but I also think that the Republican Party is still believes what I had originally believed in, whether it was in 2000, 2004, is smaller government, less regulation, protecting our country, protecting our border, smart foreign policy. So even the rhetoric may be a little bit different. I mean, obviously the most popular speech so far has been who we just heard. Yeah. I mean, Peter Navarro. But I do think that the party still believes in the fundamental values of what I believe in. It's just talked about a little differently.
Senator Vance says he doesn't care about Ukraine. Is that dangerous?
Yeah, well, I have actually a theory on this. I have a policy that I do not criticize foreign sitting presidents about foreign policy. Okay. And I am hoping when JD Vance hears security level briefings that are beyond what he's getting right now, true security level briefings, that he'll understand that.
So you're saying he has something to learn?
That the U.S. security depends 100% on international security. And I think.
Yeah. Do you want somebody in the White House that still has stuff to learn when he's a heartbeat away from the president? Hold on. In a time where former President Trump, we saw how much of a reality that is.
Well, it's not so much about what he has to learn, I don't think, because he does get some security briefings. Obviously, the level he will get will be much different, more detailed, more information, et cetera. But what's most important here is who's at the top of the ticket. And what is the top of the ticket said about this? Donald Trump and he don't see eye to eye on this particular issue, and that's fine. But J.D. Vance is the number 2. He's not the number 1. And so he's going to have to carry the water for the former president on that issue.
I want to bring in David Plouffe. He joins our roundtable of political pros. David, you're one of the great Democratic minds when it comes to strategy and getting people elected. I do want to ask you about the avalanche of bad news that has just hit the Biden-Harris campaign. And I know every time I have you on, we're hitting you with those tough headlines, but it's been a rough couple of weeks for the president. First, you had Representative Adam Schiff come out here, a high-profile Democrat, say he needs to step aside, and then you have him testing positive for COVID. If you were advising President Biden right now, what would you tell him?
Yeah, the hits keep on coming. So the conversation about should Joe Biden be the nominee will continue. It can't continue that much longer because of the routed electoral calendar. So I think he will deal with COVID responsibly, unlike his predecessor. But that doesn't mean that you can't be active. You still have a computer, you still have the ability to do satellite TV interviews, you've got your phone, a very powerful weapon for any president or presidential candidate. So I think he's going to continue to have to try and make the case to Democrats that he has what it takes to come back from the deficit he finds himself in right now. And that's the reality, is he's trailing. Does that mean it's impossible for Joe Biden to win? No. Donald Trump and his campaign will be the first people to tell you, in a divided country where Donald Trump himself is also an unpopular candidate, holding some unpopular positions with the American public, it's going to be relatively close. But right now, Trump has an advantage. So, what's challenging is Joe Biden has got 2 things he's got to handle. Well, the most important thing is he's president. And having worked in the White House when a president was running for re-election, can't underestimate how hard that is, because that's got to come first. Then you've got this debate within the Democratic Party that you've got to wage to settle this down for Joe Biden and try and convince enough of them you're the nominee. And then you've got the general election, and obviously you can do a lot on item 2 to help item 3, but that clock's ticking as well. Ballots go out in the early states, in the battleground states, in about 80 days. So, that every day you lose is a day lost. So it's incredibly challenging. There's no question about it.
Yeah, David, I do want to ask you this. Representative Adam Schiff has an incredibly close relationship with former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She has appointed him to high-profile commissions. You could almost say she's a mentor to him. Some people have brought up the question that maybe this is a proxy for Speaker Pelosi. She didn't want to go out and do this herself. Do you buy that?
I don't. Listen, never underestimate the ability for Nancy Pelosi to be both effective and discreet and spin a powerful web. This is such a big thing for a very prominent member of Congress, soon to be U.S. Senator, to call on the incumbent Democratic president not to be the nominee. You're not going to do that because you're doing it for somebody else. So obviously there's been reports that Nancy Pelosi is talking to a lot of House members, a lot of House candidates. Of course she did that. Whenever I would talk to Nancy Pelosi through the years about politics, she knows every district. She knows what's happening in those districts. She's a savant in that way. But no, I think Adam Schiff did this of his own volition. And, it was reported that he said some things behind closed doors at a fundraiser. What always pains me is when someone does that and then they say, well, no, I didn't mean that. He's basically taking responsibility for what he said. But It's a significant move for we shouldn't underestimate that. It's a really, really gut-wrenching thing for someone to do.
Hogan, the mantra for Republicans has been anytime, anywhere, any place when it came to a debate. So Vice President Kamala Harris calls Senator JD Vance, leaves him a voicemail, says, yo, I'm ready to rumble. Let's do this. They have a conversation. And now the Trump-Vance campaign saying, no, we don't want to debate anymore. We're not ready. We're not sure who the nominee is going to be. Is that a cop-out?
Maybe he's just unburdened by what it's been. I don't know. Listen, I think JD Vance is an incredible debater. Obviously, he is brilliant with his past record in school, but you've seen him and heard him. I would love for those two to debate. Now, whether or not they're doing it because of scheduling and the parameters around a debate, the outlet around the debate.
Well, they're saying they don't know who the nominee is going to be. I mean, that's their claim. They're not sure if it's going to be Gavin Newsom, who's going to be the nominee to the party. That's what the Trump campaign's saying.
That's what the Trump campaign's saying.
The Trump campaign's saying that.
But, they don't know who the VP, but I just wonder, sorry for interrupting here, I just wonder, in case the actual presidential candidate ends up being Kamala, that the Trump campaign doesn't want JD to a debater, and then eventually Trump debater, in case that happens.
This is such a disaster. Look, Republicans hadn't had 2 hours of good press consecutively in my lifetime. We've had 2 weeks of incredible news right now. Now, this exclamation point, the convention's great, but there are a million lifetimes between now and November, and while we're riding high and everyone's excited, the grunt work that it takes to win elections, getting poll watchers, poll workers, voter registration, voter mobilization, that stuff has been dominated by Democrats in the last several cycles. And every time someone in here comes up to me and says, boy, we're looking good, we could dominate red wave. Does anyone not remember the red wave a couple of years ago? People have to understand this is a long way to go. And while we've seen a lot of successes early on, and Joe Biden sadly just got diagnosed with COVID, Lord knows I hope he has a speedy recovery. We have to focus on those types of things. And while the unity ticket looks pretty strong right now, and we've got Amber Rose and the head of the Teamsters in here going out into areas we don't go into, Democrats don't even know if they're going to have the same person at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, Ashley, last word. You get the last word because we're running out of time here before we get into our 8 o'clock coverage. Do you think it's a Biden-Harris ticket? Do you think that's who's on the ticket come November?
I don't think so. I think it's Harris, and I don't think that Biden stays on. And listen, as you said,
I think it's
we're always in disarray, or we have the biggest headline. So the fact that the McCarthy-Gaetz little scuffle yesterday is the biggest fight coming out of this convention, I'll take it.
Yeah, people have argued that Republicans seem to be more unified than Democrats, and it's the first time in a long time. Yeah. Ashley, Hogan, David Plouffe, we want to thank you all. Great political pros. We appreciate all of your analysis. That will do it for this hour of our special coverage of the Republican National Convention. I'm Tom Llamas, live in Milwaukee. Haake Jackson joins me as we continue our coverage now. We take you live now inside the convention hall. It's going to be an action-packed night. Of course, Senator JD Vance coming up tonight. We're going to bring you all the coverage. Stay with us.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.